as we look here at Daniel, I want to sort of see where Daniel's prophecy could be pointing, particularly with Nebuchadnezzar's dream of that great statue. So I'm going to start doing some of Zach's artwork for him here. But here's where Daniel, remember Daniel in chapter 2, he asked God to give him Nebuchadnezzar's dream. He said, he asked, tell me what the dream is, and then tell me what the interpretation is. God did that, and Daniel and his friends, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they all praised God for revealing that to them in the earlier parts of chapter 2. But then Daniel goes to the king, and he says, you saw, O king, and beheld a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. It says, the head of this image was of fine gold, its breast and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. So you had this head made of gold, and then the chest and the arms, they're made of what?
Silver.
Okay, yeah, they were made of silver. Okay, then you had
the belly and the thighs were of brass.
Yep, brass or bronze. Yep. I'm drawing as good as he is.
You're all little people.
Yeah. Okay.
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 He just got shorter.
Yeah, he just got
Those are
shorter.
just short pants. Those are
Yeah.
clothes.
He's wearing capris. Okay, a bronze, and then the legs.
Now he's got long legs.
Now he's tall. Now he's ready for basketball. Okay, his legs were made of what?
Iron.
Iron. Okay.
I wish.
Okay, and then he had feet.
Iron and clay.
Okay. Okay, they were made of iron and clay. And then it talks about, talks a little further about it here. Okay. And Daniel said, as you looked, in verse 34, it says, as you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it smote the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold, all together were broken in pieces, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor. And the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them could be found. Now, it speaks of chaff. Have you ever seen pictures or whatever, how a threshing floor worked? How they used a threshing floor? How did they do it?
That's right up in the air. The shaft blows away.
Yeah, as they were separating out the grain from the chaff or the
Stalk.
the stalk dust, that sort of thing. They toss it up in the air, and the wind would blow the lighter weight stuff off. That's the chaff. Now it would just settle downwind as dust, and then the grain would fall back to the ground. Afterwards, they gather up the grain, and that's how they separated out the stalk material from the grain material. And so this whole statue crumbled into chaff like that, and the wind just sort of blew it away. And then it goes on into the next verse here. Second half of 35 says, "But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the earth." Now that stone, it says it was cut out not by human hand. Little stone there, and it came down, smashed the feet, and then all the rest of it crumbled. But then that stone, came over here and became a big mountain. So afterwards, and the way Daniel described this to King Nebuchadnezzar, he said, "You, O great king, you are the head." And then he said, "But then after your kingdom, another kingdom will come after you."
Persian Empire.
Where's my? Here it is. Sorry, put a little necklace around him there. Okay, after the Babylonian kingdom, then came a kingdom of silver, as you see this statue. Now, which kingdom was that one?
Persian. Medo-Persian.
Yeah, Medo-Persian. And the way I sort of remember that is two arms. You had the Medes and the Persians. Yeah. Both of those nations of people came together. They defeated the Babylonians, or the Babylonian kingdom fell, and the Medo-Persians had taken over. Okay, but then after them, they didn't last. So then a kingdom of bronze came along, and who was that one?
Greece.
Yeah, Greece. Yeah, the Grecian kingdom. But then again, they didn't last either. Yeah. Finally, a kingdom of iron came along. Now, I know Zach had made mention of this a couple weeks ago, but he said, what's the idea of going from the head down to the feet there, going from gold to silver to bronze to iron?
The kingdoms become weaker and weaker as time goes by.
The greatest nation to be defeating the others.
Okay.
Nations.
Okay. Well, the things to look at here is be careful about the weakness, because how strong is gold?
Oh, not very strong, it'll bend.
Yeah, it's a very malleable metal. Silver is about the same. Silver is a metal that can be worked very easily. And as you get on towards bronze or brass, you start getting into something that's a little more utilitarian, a little stronger. Now iron, how strong is iron?
If it's all iron, you're not gonna do anything with it.
Yeah, well, iron is a very strong metal, and in fact, I'll just read on down through here right quick. Verse 36, it says, "This was the dream, O king. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power and the might and the glory, and into whose hand he has given wherever they dwell, the sons of men, the beasts of the field, and the birds of the air, making you ruler over them all. You are the head of gold. After you shall arise another kingdom inferior to you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron which crushes, it shall break and crush all these. And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with the miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with miry clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. So, Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar basically the future. And the iron, what kingdom do we align the iron with? The iron legs? Yeah, Rome. Now, if you remember back with our 7 letters, the letter to Pergamos, the letter to Pergamum. Do you remember what Pergamum represented as far as the ages of the church? What happened that Pergamum tends to represent? Remember, Pergamum means married. The most, Pergamos. Most means married. And what got married?
The church and state. Church and state.
Yeah. The church and the state. Now, that happened during which kingdom?
Roman.
Yeah.
Well, Constantine, right?
Yeah, Constantine. Yeah, Constantine. And which of these kingdoms was he? What did I hear? Yeah, the Iron Kingdom, or Rome. It was back during that time. That was about 330 A.D. when Rome and Constantinople, the two capitals of Rome. You had a Western Empire and an Eastern Empire of Rome. Those kingdoms, or those empires, reunited at about 330 AD. And so that to me sort of represents the two legs, the Western and the Eastern empires. Now, with all these kingdoms happening as they did, and but we'll get down to the clay, get down to the feet in just a little bit here. But if we go to Galatians 4, verse 4. The thing that I find, the thing I try to do as I read the Bible, whether I'm reading Old Testament or New Testament, I always like to try to tie it back to Jesus in some way. I like to try to find some kind of connections there. And what I see out of Galatians 4:4, it says here, "But when the time had fully come, God sent forth his Son, born of woman, born under the law." And then back in Romans, chapter 5, verse 6, says here, "While we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly." Now, both of these are talking about timing, when the time had fully come. Now, Jesus, which of these kingdoms was he born under? Yeah, he was born under the Iron Kingdom. And, Galatians and Romans, they both talk about the time was right when this happened, when Jesus came. Now, what made that time right? We can look back and we can wonder why. We can wonder why why was that the right time? Well, look at what Rome did. First of all, Rome is represented by iron, the iron legs. Iron is very strong. It can crush. It can do all kinds of things. But look at some of the things that Rome did when they took over the Greek Empire. They found that the Greek language was pretty prolific throughout all the empire. Yeah. So basically, they kept that language as the common language. It was the language of business. It was the common language. It was called Koine Greek, meaning common Greek. And even during that time, during the time under Rome, the Hebrew Bible is translated into Greek. That translation is called the Septuagint, and it was translated. Part of it was translated in the 3rd century BC, and then the rest of it was translated in the 2nd century BC. And so, man had a common Bible all throughout the empire. So they had that. I mean, even when Jesus went to synagogue, he carried his little Septuagint Bible with him. It's something that everyone could understand. So those Romans, they had a common language. Then there's an old saying that all roads lead to.
When in
Yeah.
Rome, do as the Romans.
Yeah. all,
When in Rome, do as the Romans.
yeah, do as the Romans do.
All roads lead to Rome.
Yeah, all roads lead to Rome. They built the first interstate system. Well, actually, pan-continental system, like the Pan Am Highway. It spanned countries. So they made it possible to transport, to carry. They built the first logistics system, being able to transport supplies, people, everything, back and forth all throughout the empire. And then also, they had what was called,
Sorry. Built the first car, chariot.
yeah. Yeah, they built the first car, horsepower car. So, yeah, the chariot.
Joke was supposed to be in my head.
So, and now on top of that, to enforce their empire, they had what was called the Pax Roma, or the Pax Romana, and that's Latin for the peace of Rome, or Roman peace. Now, it's not peace as we would think of it. It was very oppressive peace. It's either you behave or we'll kill you. That's the way it was in Jesus' time there in Palestine. They were an oppressive people. They came in. They were imperialistic. They took over, and they governed, and they forced law upon everyone. So the Romans, they provided the common language. They provided a way to get around their interstate system, and they applied the Pax Roma, a forced oppressive peace. So they actually made being able to get the Word of God around, they made it accessible. They made it to where travel could be safer, and it was prolific. One language was understood by all, no matter what your native language was. So it was, those are the kind of things that God, he set the stage. God worked us through all of these. From back from the Gold Kingdom on down to that Iron Kingdom. He worked all that for us. He got everything, It's his planning, his will. He was the one that set that stage, and he used the Romans, the Roman Empire, to get things ready for it being the right time. Yeah, Greg?
The Iron Kingdom is still today. We're still in the Iron Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Rome started with warfare and it all. It's not over yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're still in the Iron Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Well, remember, we still haven't gone on to the feet yet.
Right.
Yeah, the feet were made partly of iron and partly of clay.
And like you mentioned, predominantly today, and it's been like that for a long, long time, it's predominantly Eastern and Western world, and in the world is the East and the West, which are two ways.
Yeah.
So we're still in the Iron Kingdom.
Yeah, we are. And, as far as that Iron Kingdom goes, when it was just solid iron, there was the Pax Roma. Everyone will obey the same law. Everyone will live at peace with each other, or we will kill you. That's the Pax Roma. Now, if we're down here with these feet that are all mixed, with things that don't mix, the iron and the clay, they don't blend together. They don't get along. We don't have that Pax Roma throughout the world today. Everybody's doing their own thing. We see what's happening over in Europe and Eastern Europe now. And the way that it tends to be drawing interest from all around the world. So, there, and then we look at our own nation, Are we a nation that are getting along?
Not
Are we
always.
cooperating?
No.
Yeah, everything's polarized. The world is polarized between, as you said, Greg, the East and the West. Here in America, we're polarized over culture and social issues, that sort of thing. Sorry?
Politics.
Yeah, politics. Yeah, everything's polarized. We're in different camps. There's always the us versus them camp, throughout the world. So we're not mixing. So the way I'm sort of seeing it is that we're down here at the feet. We're in the iron. Now that iron is still reminiscent of the Roman Empire, like you said, Greg. We still have that imperialistic kind of flair among the nations.
And as it was mentioned last class, the Roman Empire was never definitively defeated.
Yeah, right.
It lived on, just in a different way.
Yeah. What happened there in roughly the 5th century AD is that the Eastern Roman Empire, the capital being Constantinople, it was basically all that was left of the whole Roman Empire. Now, Rome, we know it's over here in Italy, right here. Now, right here in this little strait between the seas, right there was Constantinople. That was the center, or the capital, of the Eastern Empire. Rome sort of dissolved in significance around the 5th century after Christ, like I said. And Constantinople then flourished as the focal point, or the center of the Roman Empire. It wasn't until the 1200s that Constantinople was sacked, and basically the settlement there was destroyed and all that. Today, it's present day Istanbul, a city that spans, the Asian part of it's over here in the Asian continent, part of it over here in the European continent. It's a huge city, and so that's Constantinople today. The point I just wanted to share with you is that as all of this was happening. Daniel saw it back then. Well, Nebuchadnezzar saw it back then. And it was revealed to Daniel way back then. But God was working all throughout. You know, the song that we sang, Waymaker. You know, he's the promise keeper. He makes the way for everything to be. He worked all the way down through to here. When that stone that was carved out, not by human hand, was manifested. Now, it was manifested as a little baby. And that baby, showed us a new way. Showed us a new way that we could get out of this statue, in a sense. That we weren't going to live by this forever. So, what will happen though, down here, the feet, where it's a mixture of clay and iron, that clay and iron is eventually going to be smashed by this stone that's going to be cut, not by human hands. What is that stone?
Christ.
No, second coming.
Yeah, the second coming. Yeah, the second coming of Christ. He's going to come, he's going to smash the feet. They're going to turn to chaff. All the rest of the kingdoms, they're all going to be destroyed, turned to chaff, blown away. But then that stone, what's going to happen to it?
It'll roll
Turn
like
into
a
a
mountain.
mountain.
Yeah, it's gonna after it returns, after it destroys all the kingdoms that are there, it will then itself become a great mountain. So our Christ, our Savior, He came during this period. But then He's going to come again. So, all these things are at the right time, as Paul wrote to the Galatians and to the Romans. At the right time. So, one more thing I wanted to share about Jesus here in the book of Daniel. I know next week Zac is going to start in on chapter 7 of Daniel, and this is basically the final dream of there in Babylon. Now, this dream was from Belshazzar, who's the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, and if you go into Daniel chapter 7, we'll start in verse 9. Here we go. Excuse me. Starting in verse 9 through 14, it says, "As I looked, thrones were placed, and one that was of ancient days took his seat. His raiment was white as snow, the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, its wheels were burning fire. A stream of fire issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were opened. I looked then, because of the sound of the great words which the horn was speaking. And as I looked, the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. And then I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. So, who is this ancient one that took his seat?
Jesus.
God.
Yeah, God. Like I said, the Isaiah 9:6 there that Kevin shared with us today, you know, look at all the things that Christ embodies, the one that was prophesied to come. You know, he's wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. You know, he is God. And the ancient one here, I sort of see this as God the Father. Now, we're looking at kingdoms. You know, we looked at kingdoms here, and now we're seeing one that is sitting on his throne. We're seeing kingdom kind of stuff again. Now, those who are here from my 8 o'clock class, you should know this. What makes up a kingdom? What do you have to have a kingdom? Say again? Okay, you need a king.
Subjects.
You need subjects.
Loyalty.
Order.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you got a king and you have those, you have subjects who are willing to submit to him. What else do you need? One more thing.
Purpose.
Where-
Leaders. Someone else.
No.
Yeah?
Where is your kingdom?
The territory. You need
Yeah.
territory.
Territory. You need a king, you need subjects, you need territory in order to have a kingdom. Yeah, you have those three things. Now, let's go to Matthew right quick. Matthew chapter 2, and I'd like for someone else to read this. Matthew 2, verses 1 through 6. Read it good and loud.
You give me a second, I'll read it.
Okay. Good and loud, Jonathan.
2 verses 1 through 6.
Yes.
Thank you. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born, King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the peoples, chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judea. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel."
Thank you. Now they asked, "Where is he who's been born king?" Yeah. What makes that sound so strange?
Because wasn't the kings, they were passed down, they were not born.
Where's his territory?
Hmm?
Where's his territory?
Well, we're talking. You know, he's born in Bethlehem,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a start.
Okay.
At least his manger is where he begins. But yeah, what makes that sound so strange is he was born king. How many? I know we've only been, you know, we haven't seen much of regal royalty kind of things. You know, we've seen just recently here where Queen Elizabeth passed away and her son Charles instantly became king. You know, when Charles passes away, William's going to be king. This sort of thing. But are any of them born king? Was Elizabeth born queen?
Only if the monarch died before they're born.
There was no virgin birth, put it that way.
They were born to be king, but they weren't king when they were born.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, explain that, Greg.
Well, if the king dies before his son's born, when the son is born, he's king.
True. True.
Doesn't
Well-
probably happen very often, but
Yeah.
it can happen.
Yeah. Well, the thing about England, I mean, Gerald and I spent quite a few years over there, stationed there with the Air Force, but even in England, there's an age limit on being king or queen. It's 18. So even if the current monarch died while the child, their child, son or daughter, before birth,
He still
Yeah.
can't be king.
yeah, he still can't be king.
That wasn't the case in the Old Testament, though.
Well, then
Right.
who
Right.
becomes king?
In that case,
Have
it
a
would be a
regent.
regent, I mean, they wouldn't, but.
Yeah.
They
There-
would be king, but they would be in control, but,
Right.
I mean, it's just split hair, I mean,
Yeah. Well.
but it can happen,
Yeah. Okay. Well.
but it does sound odd.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds. You know, if you think about it, being born king meant he was already king before he was born. You know, that's what it's implying. And, you know, even in a case like that, if they're not king until they're born, they have to be born first before they're king. So, what's implied here with Matthew is that Jesus was already king before he was born. Now, if you take a look back at Daniel here again, back here at Daniel chapter 7, you know, we saw that the Ancient of Days took his seat upon the throne, and we saw how grand we see how grand the view is that Daniel's describing. But then down in 7:13, Daniel says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. So he was given dominion, like Becky said, territory. He was given dominion. He was given the authority, you know, he was king, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. There he had the subjects. So,
But did he have the kingdom? Or did he have the place?
well, it said, and to him was given dominion. So I take dominion to mean territory in some sense. I mean, this is all in visions.
Could be the
Grant.
power to dominate too, dominion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's his kingship kind of thing. The three things needed: king, territory, and subjects. But you know, this is gospel according to Rick now. So take this with a grain of salt. You know, I sort of see, like I said, I love trying to tie Jesus to all this as I read through the different parts of the Bible. In the beginning, you know, like John opens with his gospel, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. You know, the Word. That's, you know, back then, as in the Greek, it's the Logos. the Word. And sort of the way I see it is that, you know, you look back at Genesis, and God, you know, said simply, be. He said, light, be. Land, be. Vegetation, be. Man formed us of the dust of the earth.
It wasn't good enough, so he made another one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he said, "Whoa, man." And
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
that's what he
The gospel according to Sherry. Yeah. Now, you know, think of the power of God. You know, he had what's called fiat power. He simply said, light, be. And it happened. You know, it's just by his will. You know, the word fiat, it's more than just a car, first of all. But fiat, I mean, the definition of it says that it's an arbitrary decree or pronouncement, especially by a person or group of persons, having absolute authority to enforce it. It's an arbitrary decree by someone who has absolute authority to enforce it. That's where it just, God's will, his word came out. He said, be. And it happened. Whether it was light, whether it was earth, whether it was the heavens, he simply said, be. And it was. So, as we see John's opening gospel, he says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was God. You know, that Word is Logos. And as he goes on through the next 14 verses, John is talking about Jesus. So Jesus started out as the Word. As we read the opening of Genesis.
So he was already ruling.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, if you,
yeah.
I mean, as part of the Trinity, he
But-
has that fiat power. He did everything with the Father and with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I mean,
Well, where I'm going with this is every king has to be coronated somewhere along the line, and this is where it becomes gospel according to Rick. Every king or queen has to be coronated. They have to be made king. But by the time he was born in Bethlehem of Judea, he was already king.
he was already the anointed one.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so somehow he went from being the Word, the Logos, to king.
I think he became king when he impregnated Mary. As soon as she was expecting him, he was king.
Mm-hmm. Was he king before that?
Oh, yeah, he was always king, but I mean, to me, that's when he became separated and king.
Mm-hmm.
And, that says a lot about abortion.
Well, like I said, this gospel according to Rick, I sort of see here in Daniel 7:13, this one that came before the Ancient of Days, he looked like a son of man. In 7, and he looked like a son of man, and he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him, and to him was given dominions and glory and kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. So I sort of see that was the coronation of the Logos, where he took on that next step as God was preparing it for him.
In Daniel, is he maybe talking about that's when Jesus is given the new kingdom?
That's what I think.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
that kingdom,
Yeah, he's being coronated into the new kingdom, the new Jerusalem, the new, the heaven.
mhm,
I mean, he's given the new kingdom, his new kingdom,
mhm,
is what I'm saying.
Because it says coming with the clouds, and he wasn't given birth coming from the clouds.
no, he already
And
existed as the
second coming,
Logos.
He's coming with the clouds.
Right, yeah, this
Mhm.
one, yeah.
So it seems like that would be his coronation into the earthly kingdom.
Mhm, okay, yeah.
It's just what.
Yeah,
my
no.
interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way you said that, earthly kingdom. You know, because all of this is talking about earthly kingdoms.
Word became flesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Became the head.
Yeah,
physically.
yeah. That's where this rock comes from. That's not cut by human hand. Yeah. This rock, we're, you know, in a spiritual sense, you know, this rock already exists. That rock is Jesus. We're waiting for that rock to traverse down here to these feet of clay and iron, to smash them, and to smash any and all ideas of earthly kingdom. And then what's going to be left is that rock becoming a great mountain. Now, yeah, the kingdom has always been. God's kingdom has always been. So, that kingdom, let me see here. I don't want to destroy my beautiful artwork there.
I took a picture of it for talent night.
Yeah, yeah. All the anti-talent, yeah. You know, God's kingdom, God's kingdom has always existed, right? Always, because God has always existed. You know, He has territory. He has all that He's created. You know, even before that, He had that fiat power. That fiat power, that ability to have authority to just make something be. You know, even before creation, He had that fiat power. So that was His territory. And in a sense, that made all things subject to Him. All things. The spiritual realm, everything.
Still is.
And yeah, and He has the authority. So His kingdom has always existed. Now here in our realm, we live in time and space. You know, He lives outside time and space. That's why to Him 1,000 years is as a day is as 1,000 years. It's irrelevant. Does He need a watch? Nah. It doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. But to us, we started at creation. That's where our world started. Our everything started at creation. And it's going to end at judgment, or the second coming of Christ. That's where our time and space are going to end. Now, what happened in between? Right here. There's the cross. Somewhere between creation and the second coming, the cross happened. Now, what happened with that cross, at that cross, is the kingdom of God was all, like I said, it always existed. But it wasn't until the cross that the kingdom touched down in our world, in our lives. You know, Christ coming to us, Christ basically opening the way to the Father for us.
The
See,
curtain
we're
ripped.
always looking
The
for
curtain
the
ripped at
cross
crucifixion.
versus us looking back.
Yeah. What'd you say?
The curtain ripped at crucifixion.
Yeah. You know, the
He's
curtain.
died, right.
Yeah, the curtain ripped from top to bottom. That curtain was basically a hand width thick. All of it being woven together. And, you know, it was ripped. And what it
Tall.
did,
It
it
was
laid,
tall, really tall.
Yeah.
Nobody could have
Yep.
done it.
And it laid bare to man where God, the name of God dwelled. There with the Ark of the Covenant. Over the Ark. And anyway, that opened that opened man's way to God. So it wasn't until the cross that the kingdom touched down. Since then, we have the church. Right in here. This is the church. And then when Jesus comes again, when he comes to take his children, or his brothers, his sisters, back into the kingdom.
Yeah, and that judgment's not the white throne judgment, it's the judgment seat, where he calls these people home. That's for the ones born again.
Mm-hmm.
Later comes the judgment, great white throne judgment, where the lost will be judged.
Right. Yeah, so that kingdom has always existed. The king has always existed. And God, the one we see as God the Father. His Son was, now this is back to Gospel according to Rick, the Son started out as the Logos. He started out as that fiat power of God. He was the Logos, the Word. Somewhere along the line, and like I said, this is just me. This is just me. He was coronated, made king, prepared to come to us to be born king, already king. So, and these are the things that, you know, Daniel sort of talks to me about. So, like I said, that's Gospel according to Rick.
Well, it does say in John 1, in the beginning was the Word was God,
Mm-hmm.
was with God, and the Word was God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then if you read on down through those first 14 verses,
The word became flesh.
yeah, the Word became flesh.
Mm-hmm.
We all know.
Yeah, so, you know, to me, kings always have to be coronated. This is just my little thinking. So, I like seeing back in Daniel, perhaps, just perhaps, that is where the pre-incarnate Jesus was coronated. So, take that what it's worth. So, anyway, yeah, I wanted to end there, but, you know, like I said, Zach will come back, he'll start into chapter 7, of Daniel, and then he'll go on, and